Oh, I know. Speaking of congressional friends, Representative Zoe Lofgren of the great state of California joins us now. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning. How are you, Stephanie?
I got to tell you something. I am so happy the Shield Act that you're working on because I just did an event with Barbara Boxer for her PAC a couple nights ago, and I'm sitting not
Great.
yeah, not to name drop, but I'm sitting there with Larry David, and you know what he was wanting to talk about the most? Election security. He's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing about that? What's going to happen in 2020? So tell us about the Shield Act because it could not be more timely.
Well, the SHIELD Act is really an anti-propaganda bill. It's to prevent foreign interests from impacting our election. It has several provisions. Broadly, it creates a duty on the part of campaigns, political campaigns and parties, to report to both the FBI and the FEC when foreign governments or foreign political parties or agents try to contact them and try and get involved in our elections. That should be the norm. Well, we're going to require it and make criminal penalties if you fail to do that.
Hey, Representative, doesn't this fall under stuff we never thought we'd have to make
Exactly.
new laws
But,
about? Isn't this already illegal? I don't mean to be. That's
well,
maybe a dumb question.
You have to prove a conspiracy at this point. I think the Mueller report said they couldn't actually find the elements to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a conspiracy. This makes it easy. You have an obligation to report, and if you don't, it's a crime.
Well, okay, because you tweeted, you said Trump's campaign shared internal polling data with a Russian operative, and the Russians then used Facebook's geographic targeting measures to hit Americans in specific locations with political ads.
That's correct.
This info sharing should be illegal, again, under the category of things I thought were already illegal. But I mean, when you have...
This makes an easy case. We had yesterday a hearing in the Judiciary Committee, and we had the individual from the FBI in charge of this stuff. And I said, would this make it easier to make the case? And the answer is yes. So let's just make this simple, and we all know this is wrong.
Yeah.
And so this will make it clear. We also do some other things, which is in addition to requiring that you report such influences, we put some new obligations when it comes to online advertising. Right now, the disclosure requirements that apply in radio and TV, they don't apply to digital advertising. People have a right to know who's paying for these ads. And we also put the burden on the platforms to make a good faith effort to find out whether it's foreign governments that are actually buying these ads.
Yeah.
Something they're not doing now.
Right. Well, you also point out, because you'd forgotten it. We were doing the Mueller report the other night, and I thought, gee, that seems so old-timey and nostalgic, doesn't it? That was like the old treason. But as you pointed out, Trump and his 17 of his campaign officials had over 100 contacts with Russians and WikiLeaks. I mean, I think it's still astounding that, when you read the Mueller report, and I think we're still going to find out more about that, right? I mean, that obviously in court right now, they're saying, why wasn't Don Jr. or McGahn interviewed? I mean, I think they're holding back too much information from Congress, the judge ruled, right, from the Mueller report?
They are, and we'll find out more. But what we need to address is that this behavior, first, that you would not report the contact, but also that you would give information. We prohibit the sharing of confidential campaign information with foreign agents.
Right.
You wouldn't think you'd have to do that, but we do.
Right.
And so that would also be prohibited, and we do some other things in terms of closing loopholes for foreign nationals who would influence campaign spending through corporations or political action groups. So it's simple, but it's solid, and it would make our elections less susceptible to manipulation by foreign adversaries.
Congresswoman, what I was going to say, I'm sorry. There's so many. I guess when we have a president that will say on camera, "Yes, I would take foreign help," and now we have on top of it this whole Ukraine story, with him clearly soliciting more foreign interference in 2020. You talked about the hosting the G7 at his own part. You said they aren't even trying to hide the corruption anymore. Well, I mean, I guess the main question I'm going to ask is Mitch McConnell. Like, this is going to go to his graveyard, isn't it?
Well,
And if that doesn't look suspicious to the American people, that he doesn't want to prevent election interference, I don't know what does.
Well, it is. It's interesting because a number of the provisions in the bill have broad bipartisan support. For example, we've incorporated most of what was called the Honest Ads Act, which is the disclosure on in digital. That had 18 Republican co-sponsors and 17 Democratic co-sponsors in the House. So it's not like some,
Right.
Democratic cabal, but the Republicans now are viciously complaining how unfair and unreasonable it is. So I think they've dug in their heels, and it's unfortunate because I really do believe, for the most part, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they don't think that foreign governments should be, interfering in our elections, but they've become so defensive about the president that they really can't step forward in unity as Americans to protect our country, and that's disappointing.
Well, I hate to say there's any good side to the whole Ukraine story, but you're right. It's almost made it so egregious and so obvious, that this didn't just happen in the past, but it is ongoing, right? I mean, I think the other thing is it's affecting our national security. You look what's happening in Syria. You look what's happening with Ukraine. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it could be any more clear that he is fulfilling Putin's wish list. And I just don't think we ever envisioned that our biggest foreign and domestic threat would be the president. I mean,
well, obviously, I'm on the Judiciary Committee, not the Intelligence Committee, and Intelligence is taking the lead appropriately on this fact-finding aspect of the impeachment inquiry, assisted by the Foreign Affairs and Government Oversight Committee. So I trust the members of those committees to do their job properly, to flesh out the facts, and then depending on what they find, it will come to the Judiciary Committee, and we'll see what, if any, action we should take. I will say this, that the standard really is whether the president is fulfilling his obligations, his oath of office, to protect and defend the Constitution and to really keep it. The Founding Fathers were very worried about foreign influence in the United States. That's why the Emolument Clause even exists. And so we need to make sure that the president's whole obligation, every day he wakes up thinking about what's good for America, not what's good for himself.
Yeah. Well, he's called it the phony Emoluments Clause. He said, I'm in charge of the Hatch Act. I mean, he swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. He clearly doesn't even believe in it. He's calling impeachment illegal and unconstitutional. Well, I mean, it really...
Which is obviously incorrect. The Constitution says that the Congress has sole authority over impeachment, and that was debated at length as the Constitution was being formed for a reason. There was great concern that a chief executive needed to be some way to hold them to account.
Yep.
And the Founding Fathers were very aware of the law of impeachment, the history. There was a big impeachment going on at the time they were drafting the Constitution with the British leader in India, and they were aware of all those. So it's treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, and that really is behavior that is so destructive that it upends the constitutional order. It's not, a crime in the ordinary sense.
Yeah.
It's high crimes and misdemeanors that completely undercuts the system of government.
Yep. Representative Lofgren, how can we help? I wanted to bring you full circle at the end of this conversation with Larry David the other night that, we're trying to turn the Senate blue, obviously keep the House blue. But, I said, sometimes I hesitate to use my platform to talk about this kind of stuff because I don't want to depress the vote. I don't want people to think, oh, my vote's not going to count anyway. They're going to, let foreign countries interfere. They're going to suppress my vote. So I want us to boost turnout, and I want us to, obviously we can have everybody call their representatives, right, in terms of the SHIELD Act?
Absolutely, and we're going to have a vote, we think this afternoon. So today would be a great day to call the representatives and ask them to vote yes. But I'll say this, we hope that the Senate will act, but highlighting the information also helps. We had a bill of mine that we passed earlier this year called the SAFE Act to secure just the infrastructure of voting, and a big part of that was paper ballots, so
Yep.
that you can't, just distort them. We now have a majority of the states have moved to paper ballots.
Yep.
So raising the issue has actually helped, and we believe that we're going to put the onus on the platforms. They need to have a
Yep.
legal requirement, but we really need to turn up the heat.
Yeah.
On
Well,
the
and
platforms so they do the right thing.
yeah, and specifically, Representative, if your representative is Republican, ask them why they don't want to protect American elections from foreign interference. Ask them why they don't want Americans to decide American elections. And I thank you, as always. Great work in the House, and we are rooting for you. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been good talking.
All right, you too. There she goes, Representative Zoe Lofgren of the great state of California.